Alright everyone, GobyGameZero here, and welcome back. If you're battling through Elden Ring Night Rain and feeling a bit outmatched, stick around because I'm about to share some experience. Are you also running into those nightmare lobby situations where your teammates seem to be playing in another dimension, causing your squad to wipe before you even make it past the second or third night? Super frustrating, right? Or maybe you decided to go full solo mode, only to realize that even the first night is a massive hurdle. Don't lose hope. In today's video, I'm going to reveal an incredibly effective solo strategy for Night Rain. With this approach, taking on any Nighlord will feel much more manageable, giving you a solid path to conquer that tough third night and march straight to the final boss. The Nighlord, of course, you'll still need to learn the boss mechanics, dodging, attacking, the usual drill, but this solo method is a real game changer. It has to be said, if you've got a good chunk of playtime in Elden Ring under your belt, that's going to be a massive advantage on this journey. If you're new, don't sweat it too much, it just means you'll need a bit more perseverance. The reason prior Elden Ring experience is so valuable is because Night Rain, fundamentally, isn't designed with the solo player in mind. The developers have made a few tweaks to make the solo experience a bit more friendly. But honestly, if you just want to clear the game smoothly and probably have more fun, teaming up with friends in co-op is still the top choice. Many of the game's mechanics truly shine with an organized team. So, when you're flying solo, expect to be a bit nerfed. Even if you're a skilled solo player, the challenge will still be a notch tougher than with a decent squad. Is it doable? Absolutely, but get ready for some serious grinding and practice. So, to kick off your Night Rain run effectively, what you really need is a clear game plan, because the core of this game is all about playing optimally and strategically. Right when you jump in, after picking your character, immediately decide which Nighlord you're going to hunt down. Each of these bosses has a specific elemental weakness, indicated by a small icon next to their name. This is your golden key to staggering and controlling them in the fight. When playing solo, equipping a primary weapon that matches this elemental weakness is absolutely crucial. It will make a world of difference. As soon as you spawn, don't wander off. Take care of the small fry, those weak mobs usually hanging around your first sight of grace. Their exact position might change each run, but these trash mobs are always nearby. Don't underestimate this step. Farming them to get from level 1 to 2 can be a critical first move that heavily influences your entire run. Regarding character choice, realistically, any character has potential, but I personally lean towards Wilder. The reason is, Wilder is one of the easier characters to get the hang of. And more importantly, his passive ability lets you cheat death once, an incredibly valuable asset when you're all on your own. Survivability is paramount, you can't afford to die, as that's your only lifeline. Wilder is a solid pick because he synergizes well with many straightforward strength builds that are easy to play and highly effective. So, I suggest starting with Wilder. But don't hesitate to experiment and get creative with other characters once you feel more confident and familiar with Night Rain's mechanics. After hitting level 2, your next move should be to find structures like fortresses, ruins, or similar small landmarks. I'd advise against wasting time on enemy encampments, just steer clear of them. Instead, focus on these castles or small ruins where you can farm resources. Now, if you happen to find a weapon here that exploits the elemental weakness of the Nighlord you chose, that's fantastic. This means if you see an icon on your map matching your target Nighlord's weakness in a specific area, defeating the boss guarding that area will reward you with a weapon dealing that elemental damage, a very valuable guarantee. Head in, try to clear out the mobs, and take down the area boss as quickly as possible to claim your reward. If you're an Elden Ring veteran, you might need to adjust your mindset a bit here. In Elden Ring, we usually only carry weapons we actively need or use. However, in Night Rain, it's different. All weapons, swords, spears, shields, seals, every single one comes with some kind of passive bonus. These bonuses apply to your character as long as the weapon is in your inventory, whether you're wielding it or not. So, get into the habit of picking up almost every weapon you come across. As you play more, you'll get better at identifying which ones benefit your build, playstyle, or help counter the final Nighlord. One small note on these passives: if a weapon has a hand icon next to its passive, that means the bonus is only active when you're actually holding that weapon. Most passives work unconditionally, but some require you to have them equipped. Just keep an eye out for that icon. Once you understand this, you can start planning your character build and passive ability strategy. Collect as many weapons as you can, even if they look junky. Hold on to them until you find something better to replace them with. At this point, if you've cleared your first mini-boss in a ruin or similar location, you should be around level 3. From here, I highly recommend taking out any small enemies you encounter along your path. And crucially, mark the locations of churches on your map. These are the churches of Marika, where in the original Elden Ring you'd find sacred tears. In Night Rain, they grant you an additional flask charge. You might find about 3 such churches on your map, usually quite far apart, but trying to secure all of them in a single run is extremely worthwhile. You'll need to optimize your route to do so. Prioritize these, because when playing solo, these extra flask charges, actually, even in co-op, are absolutely essential. I usually try to grab 1 or 2 extra charges before the first night hits. If I can't manage that, I'll definitely make it a priority after the first night and before the second. Ideally, I try to squeeze in a third charge before facing the Nighlord. Of course, this can be a bit RNG dependent, but once you've done all this and snagged a couple of extra flasks, you should be around level 4, approaching level 5. Our goal is to be at least level 5, or ideally level 6, before the first night begins. Clearing out ruins or strongholds should help you reach this level target. And hopefully, by this time, you'll also have a decent collection of passive abilities stacked up. Eventually, the first night will fall, and you'll find yourself confined to a small circle, facing an initial wave of enemies, followed by a tougher battle with that night's main boss, possibly a weaker version of a Nighlord. Now, for this part, it's genuinely hard to give specific advice because it's entirely dependent on the RNG of your run, which boss you get, or which Nighlord you're technically up against. There's a lot of variety. This is where your Elden Ring experience truly shines, as the boss behaviors are very similar. A significant advantage in solo play is that enemies generally won't swarm you all at once. Instead, they tend to attack one by one, allowing you to breathe a little easier and focus on a single main target at a time. This is a huge help when you're fighting alone. Being level 5, 6, or even 7 should be more than enough for most players to survive the first night. In my first few solo attempts, I often went into the first night at only level 3, feeling quite lost, but once you've optimized your gameplay to hit level 5 or 6 before that first night, things will be much smoother. Assuming you've successfully survived the first night, the first thing I usually do is immediately map out a plan for the next day before the surrounding fog clears. Typically, this plan involves getting another flask charge, finding another church if possible. After the first night is also when I personally think it's okay to start tackling field bosses. These are marked by a red skull icon on your map. Again, their appearance is somewhat random. They can be any type, anywhere. Your goal is to try and defeat as many of these as you can, while also clearing out smaller enemies on your way to each one. If you can take down 1 or 2 field bosses during the second day, you're doing pretty well. I tend to go for the easier ones, like golems or the Red Wolf of Radagon. Once again, your Elden Ring experience is your secret weapon here. If you already know these bosses' movesets, dealing with them will be much easier, because even if you're around level 7 or 8 by now, there's still no pushovers. Defeating them will net you great rewards and a lot of runes. At this point, instead of dumping all your runes into leveling up, you should look for merchants, those vendor NPCs you can spot wandering around on the map. From them, you can buy an item called Wending Grace. This is essentially your self-revive. You can only carry 2 at a time, and they cost 10.000 runes each. You can buy them from different vendors to ensure you always have 2 on hand. These are probably the single most important item for solo play. If you happen to fall in battle, Wending Graces are your only ticket back into the fight. The secret to efficient and swift combat in Night Rain is successfully executing stance breaks. This should be your primary combat goal, especially if you're using Wilder. There are many ways to achieve this. Heavy attacks are excellent for inflicting stance damage, and Wilder's ultimate, that Flame Blast attack? Keep in mind that during the entire wind-up animation for this move, you are completely invincible, so you can strategically use it to dodge devastating boss attacks. You'll most likely phase right through them. Plus, it deals a massive amount of stance damage to the boss, opening them up for a critical hit or other follow-up attacks. This is your bread and butter tactic for defeating big, tough bosses in this game. When it comes to choosing your post-boss bonuses, there are many variables to consider, but here are a couple of interesting points you should know. For example, if you see a bonus that restores HP over time, grab it. It works similarly to the Estus Flask in Dark Souls 2, healing a small amount of health continuously over a short period. You might think instant healing is better, but this heal over time effect actually provides more total health recovery. I highly recommend this, especially for endurance builds, and it can be a lifesaver during tough boss fights. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, Wilder is also amazing for solo play due to his incredible mobility with his grappling hook. That's definitely a key advantage. Speaking of relics, there's one that gives you an extra grapple charge, further enhancing your mobility. However, generally, relics provide fairly minor buffs in the grand scheme of things. Don't get too hung up on them if you don't have any great ones. What truly matters is your personal skill and how efficiently you can take down enemies. Not your relics. They aren't that big of a deal. I'm doing my best to lay out my ideal operational sequence to reach the Nighlord. But one thing I want to emphasize for solo players: stay away from caves. The main reward from caves is usually just a smithing stone. Now, that's not useless, right? Upgrading a good weapon to a higher rarity will significantly improve it. but it's generally not worth the time investment because after defeating a couple of field bosses or even a nightly boss, you're likely to get a better weapon anyway. Caves are simply too much of a time sink. In co-op, when you have multiple people doing different things, you might get away with it, but for solo play, just forget about them. After the first night, if you can ideally defeat 2 Nighlords and maybe clear 1 or 2 ruins, you should be around level 9, or even 10 if you manage, and hopefully, you'll also have 2 of those self-revive items, those Wending Graces. Once you have both of those in your inventory, other gear doesn't matter quite as much, as long as you have stacked passive buffs and maybe a couple of good talismans. You should be good to go. Honestly, the key to playing Night Rain, you could technically defeat any Nighlord at any time if you're strong enough, but the real key, regardless of your character, weapon, or even the Nighlord you choose, is figuring out what's worth spending your time on and what just yields diminishing returns. There will be many moments when you encounter a field boss that looks very tempting to fight, but it might not be worth it, especially if it costs you the chance to get an extra flask charge or something else critical. The pace you need to maintain if you're optimizing for solo play and performing well enough to consistently reach a Nighlord is breakneck. There's no room for hesitation. The boss you'll face on the second night will undoubtedly be the toughest challenge you've encountered so far. And once again, it's very hard to give universal advice because there are all sorts of different bosses you could get. Depending on your run and your chosen Nighlord, I'll plan to make a more in-depth guide about the Nighlord bosses themselves soon if you guys are interested. This video primarily focuses on equipping you with a foundational strategy to consistently overcome the initial hurdles. I've tried to explain my thought process and the steps I take in each run. Hopefully, these insights will empower you on your journey through Night Rain. The great thing is, once you successfully apply this strategy and defeat your first Nighlord, you'll essentially unlock access to challenge all the other Nighlords in the game. From that point, you can simply repeat this method to systematically take down each boss one by one. So, this video is like me giving you the fishing rod, so you can catch those big fish yourself, providing you with the core knowledge to master the game and explore all that Night Rain has to offer. If you found this guide helpful and it cleared things up for you, don't forget to drop a like and hit that subscribe button for GobyGameZero so I have more motivation to cook up even more quality videos. Do you guys have any other cool tips for soloing Night Rain? Or any requests for what challenge I should take on next? Don't hesitate to share in the comments below for me and everyone else to see. For now, good luck with your battles, and I'll catch you in the next video. GobyGameZero out.